Boom, we're live. Let's address the elephant in the room and dive right into it because Florida real estate is collapsing. Now, perhaps you've heard about the demise of the real estate market in Florida for a long time because there are tons of content creators out there that have been predicting the collapse, half price homes, fire sales everywhere in all different markets that exist within Florida. So anybody can say anything. Let's look at what the numbers are. We're going to do a deep dive into what the actual real-time numbers are. We're going to, it's actually perfect because today is the 31st. Happy Saturday evening. And you're watching Chris Igoe. So if you are watching, I see there's 3 of you out there. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I hope you find value. If there is an area you want to know about, and it happens to be in the area in which I cover, I'll be happy to share anything you'd like about that particular market. But when people ask me what's going on with the housing market, with the real estate market, I typically have no idea what they're asking me because there's no such thing as a macro real estate market. There's obviously national averages, but within the state of Florida, there are many different markets, right? So I happen to be in Palm Beach County. And if you're shopping for a home, if you're looking to buy a home, looking to buy a condo, whatever it might be, or even sell a home or condo or any type of real estate, you must know granularly what's happening within your micro market. You need to get hyper local. You need to know what the numbers are. And as I mentioned, anybody can say anything. And I certainly am guilty of all types of clickbait titles, clickbait thumbnails to get you to click to watch the video. But if you end up actually watching the video, you'll see it will be revealed what the truth is in each and every one of these videos. What's up, Volker? Happy Saturday evening to you too. Thanks for watching. But there's so much going on right now, and I think we need to do a deep dive into what the numbers say. I can lie to you. Somebody else can lie to you. Everybody can lie to you. The numbers, however, do not lie. I also don't lie, but that's for you to decide, right? What's up, Pond or PWNED? Good evening. We're rocking and rolling. We're doing big things. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is go through many of the markets that exist within Broward, Dade, Miami, Palm Beach counties, right? I'm going to get hyper local into these markets so you know exactly what's going on. And there's a lot going on right now. Obviously, we are in the throes of an election season. I'm not going to get political here, but there has been lots of data that has come out recently. Many people question the accuracy, the validity of this data, but they would have you believe that everything looks great because it is great, right? Possibly. Let's see what the numbers say. And I'm going also to lift up the hood of my particular market. I'm going to show you a listing that I have and share with you not only what my experience with this property that I have for sale right now is, but also what the agents are telling me. Because I get a lot of feedback. I speak to lots of different agents throughout the country, throughout Florida specifically. And a lot of people are freaking out right now because there has been a massive change in terms of the way agents are compensated. And if you've looked anywhere for anything as it relates to real estate, you've heard about the commission changes, right? And when I speak to agents, there many of them, not all, but many of them are terrified that they're not going to get paid anymore because now they must have their client sign a buyer brokerage agreement. They have to contractually agree to what the buyer is going to pay that agent. And if you can't provide a track record and prove value, chances are you're not getting paid, right? But my experience with this is I'm thrilled because as a listing agent, I don't want to negotiate for the buyer's agent. I don't want to negotiate against myself. I would much prefer to only negotiate for myself and negotiate with that seller what he's going to compensate me. and then let that seller know that the buyer's agent is going to have to negotiate for themselves. And typically when someone's negotiating against me, they don't really do very well. So the days of 6% commissions, allegedly, if that's what you happen to be charging your clients, are very likely over if you're thinking about selling your home. And there are lots of people right now that are thinking about selling the home. Is the mic not working? Can you not hear me? Michael, you make sure my audio is hello, testing, 1, 2. Well, it seems like it's working. Turn up your volume. Turn me up in my headphones. Yeah, I'll be sure to upgrade that immediately. But I don't want to get distracted. I want to keep it 100. We got a lot of things happening, right? So again, not political, but if you've been watching the news at all, if you've been following anything that's going on with Kamala, she's proposed up to $25,000 in down payment support for first-time homebuyers. She's also proposed some plans which include taxing unrealized gains. And I'm not going to comment on my opinion about what I think about either of these two proposals at all. I'll let you decide for yourself. I'm curious what you think. So if you have any thoughts on that, please leave some comments and perhaps we'll get into it here. But I saw a video with Grant Cardone, who is, by the way, as far as Grant Cardone is concerned, I have to qualify this. When I was a stockbroker, one of the infamous legends of the industry, at least within the small cap community of bullshit brokerages, was Jordan Belfort. And if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But I saw a video of him many years ago where he and when Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort were, they were on a podcast together, and it was a conversation about sales and sales training. And Grant Cardone got absolutely obliterated by Jordan Belfort. Jordan was throwing him up easy lobs to hit out the park, and Grant couldn't sell ice to an Eskimo. So I don't have a lot of respect or regard for Grant Cardone. He's obviously had lots of success, but I trust him about as far as I can throw him. That being said, he came out recently and talked about what his opinion of this proposal for taxing unrealized gains, what it is. And I'd encourage you to watch it because although I think he talks out both sides of his mouth, I think he talked for the first time extremely authentically, extremely truthfully. And I actually really liked what he had to say, and I agree with him, which it's probably the only thing that I agree with him on because I allegedly heard he was a Scientologist and he's a whack job and this, that, and the other thing. However, yeah, Pond, I'm agreeing with you. Yes, both are very likely con artists. I don't trust either one of them. However, I do know that Jordan was a good salesman. And Grant couldn't hold his own when they were debating about sales tactics or any of that kind of stuff. But I'm not here to sell you anything. This is not a sales pitch. This is a deep dive into data. But if you are so inclined, I would encourage you to check out his video talking about taxing unrealized gains, because I suspect it is an economic disaster. But again, no politics. Let's just keep it moving. So what happened Friday? Well, the Fed's preferred inflation indicator came out, and the Fed is now going to focus on the employment part of its mission. And I couldn't help but notice that the biggest downward revision in job numbers just happened. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I've shared these numbers are bullshit. They are constantly revised, sometimes years afterward. And I've seen this, I've experienced it. I was a stockbroker during the great financial crisis, and the revisions that happened just on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis were astronomical. And I don't believe they ever told the truth. And I don't expect them to tell the truth now, especially during election season. But out came this revision, and it was the biggest downward revision since 2009. But the spin on this time it's different. Right. This time it's absolutely different. Just like when the market crashes, because it will, 100% at some point, there is no way that our economic system will not break, period. There are way too many things that are at risk right now with the massive deficits that we have. And it's only a matter of time until that happens. When it does, it is going to be an apocalypse. And I suspect it will start in the stock market, which is setting new highs, record highs. Everything is bullish, 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 bullish. It's the best economy ever, the best stock market ever, the best for everyone ever, unless you buy groceries, unless your income hasn't skyrocketed also. But most folks that I speak to are feeling tremendous financial pain, and their income has not kept up with inflation. But I don't want to get too far off into the weeds here, or this will be a 2-hour video. I do want to talk about the numbers because the numbers speak for themselves. But that being said, closing the loop on the commission question. Yeah, so commissions have changed. I think it's the greatest thing that ever happened. I think it is a gift. I would much prefer for me to negotiate if I'm working with a buyer and I am going after their a listing, a home, a condo, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I would much rather negotiate for myself than have the listing agent do it for me. And because I've got a track record of massive discounts negotiated for my clients, I've had no issues with anybody hiring me to help them find their dream home, dream lifestyle, and negotiate the best deal possible. So if that's something I can ever help you with, then please reach out. I would love to help. Separately, if you must sell, and there are many people who I think are in denial of their actual financial situation right now, but if you must sell, then please reach out. We will find the one buyer on planet Earth willing to pay more than anyone else, irrespective of market conditions, period. That is what we specialize in. And if you need a cash offer instantly or immediately because you're in foreclosure or not in foreclosure, if you're about to be foreclosed on, we've got a team of investors, which could be myself or others, that are happy to help you out in your situation. And we're not going to lowball cash offer you. We're going to give you something competitive that helps you in your time of need. There are all types of solutions, but I suspect there's going to be a major uptick in these distress sales numbers as time marches on. Now, to be perfectly clear, I live in Palm Beach County. I live in West Boynton, and it is an affluent area. There are many folks out there that are fake rich. There are also people who are actually rich, but there are many people out there who live the life of keeping up with the Joneses. They need to have the next best thing. And there are many people that I know personally that are high income earners that really are illiquid. They don't have any money. They're much further in debt than they are. They can't cover their debts. They're drowning in debt. And you can only play that game so long in a good economy before you go bust. And there are going to be people that get hit with that financial pain. I don't want that for anybody. But let's get into the numbers. I'm going to share some. Actually, no, I'm going to start with lifting up the hood of my own business, right? And I'm going to go granular here because I am transparent. I'm happy to share everything I can possibly share. I'm going to go to a listing of mine in Delray Beach, sharing the screen from the MLS, right? So what we've got here is a beautiful, and I'm not trying to sell you, it just objectively is a beautiful home. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,603 square feet under air. Built in 2021. It's essentially a brand new home. It was essentially never lived in, and it's furnished. It looks great. If a home doesn't sell, typically it's price, condition, or marketing. And with this particular home, full transparency, it's been on the market for 44 days. I can tell you, it's been a very long time since I had a home sit on the market unsold, period. And the market has changed radically at this price point for this type of home. It's a 55 plus active adult community. It is very nice, but there's lots of other homes for sale. Buyers at this price point, they got all the time they want and they've got almost all the leverage. But that being said, it's been sitting on the market unsold for 44 days. it's had 22 showings, right? So half of the time sitting on the market, it's had that many showings. It is highly unusual for me to have a home that's had 22 showings and no contracts offered, zero contracts up until recently. Today, we've got something that I suspect will turn into a closed sale. I think we finally found the right buyer. But all that being said, it is highly unusual, especially relative to the recent past, for a home to sit this long with this many showings. But that's the reality of it. And I got a text, which I'm going to share with you here, because again, I believe in transparency, from the buyer's agent, who I suspect has the buyer for this home. And she started with, "Hi there. Does 2.5% buyer commission still stand for a good accepted offer?" Now, full disclosure, when I took this listing, it was prior to the commission changes. So the commission has already been pre-negotiated, and we intend to honor that particular negotiation, right? So moving forward on new listings, this conversation will go very differently. But she wanted to know if she's going to get paid, because when she looks into the MLS, what you're going to see here is there's no spot. Normally, it would be in this area that I'm circling, what the co-broke commission is. Well, you'll notice there is none. So she was afraid she either would not get paid or would have to negotiate her own commission. I can tell you, if that was the case, it is very, it's almost an impossibility that she would get 2.5%. But that's what it is. That's what we're going to stand by. I stand by my word, and that's what we already contractually agreed to. So she went on to say, "Your listing has been on my buyer's favorite list for some time." And again, I'm not making this up. You can see what it is. Although hopefully you didn't get to see what her contact information was or name, because I want to keep her anonymity. But she goes on to say, "Your listing has been on my buyer's favorite list for some time, just trying to get him to pull the trigger. Seeing for at least the second time tomorrow." Well, I already know she's seen it more than twice, or she has shown the property more than twice. Obviously, I track these things, but it's the first time that she's actually responded to me and given feedback. Of the 22 showings that happened on this particular listing, just procedurally, I reach out to every single person who sees the home, every single buyer agent that comes to see any listing that I have. Immediately after they're done with that showing, either me or someone on my team is going to call them up and say something like, "Did your buyer love the home? Because the seller is highly motivated and we'd love to put a deal together." And I would say that whether that was true or not, because I want them to write a contract. But what I take a little bit of offense to in what I just read is that she's trying to get them to pull the trigger. Now, again, not a knock on her. I don't know anything about her, or him, or them, or they. I want to use all the right pronouns. But I don't know. I don't know this person. They may be brand new. But I do know that if, as a real estate agent, you're trying to get somebody to pull the trigger, you're deploying sales pressure in the process, well, then you are an asshole, because I know I'm not supposed to say that, but I got to tell the truth, because sales pressure should never be deployed in anything. In fact, I have a no sales pressure policy. If I or anyone on my team ever does deploy sales pressure, they are immediately, and I'm going to use a Trumpism here, fired, period. There's no place for it. We don't make decisions for our clients. Our clients make their decisions, and we provide them with the best information so that they can make the best decisions for themselves and for their family. Period. End of story. If it's not right for you, it's not right for us, and we move on to the next one. So I take umbrage with the fact that she is trying to get them to pull the trigger. But as I mentioned, just as I scripted for you or role played for you, what did I write back? "Hi, Heather. Sellers are highly motivated. I also disclosed paying 2.5%, and we'd love to do a deal with you." A response, "Oh, thank goodness." But then later in the day, late last night, I got a more revealing text, and I'm sharing this because you need to know. What did Pawn say at 8:19? Thanks for the insight and honesty. The buyer is watching housing market. The buyer is watching housing market crash videos. Yeah, and look, let's just question whether that's true. Is the housing market going to crash? Or no, not going to crash, because at some point everything that goes up comes down, right? But is the housing market collapsing right now in Florida? Well, don't take my word for it. The data is going to reveal it in a few seconds after I finish with my monologue here. But the data speaks for itself. The numbers don't lie, unless they're reported by the government, in which case then they're definitely bullshit. At least that's my experience having been a stockbroker for 20 years. But she goes on to say, hey, great news. Looks like of the 30 plus places I've shown him, yours is the one he says he wants to let me submit an offer for. Just wanted to let you know, he's got to run numbers with the lender, which, by the way, if you're an agent and your lender has not run the numbers prior to you signing a buyer brokerage agreement, then you're not doing your job the right way. You're not advocating for your client the right way. Your client doesn't have a freaking clue as to where they stand financially. You must run the numbers prior to even getting in the car to showing them a house. They need to know what the numbers are. And if they don't know what their numbers are, you must make them understand where they're at financially. Now, some people know exactly where they're at to the penny. They are very, very dialed into what their economic reality is. And others are not so much. They don't have a freaking clue. So, as a professional, your job, or my job, is to ensure that whomever it is that thinks that they can buy a $1 million house, $500,000 house, or $50,000 condo, they will know their numbers, or I'm not going to work with them, period. And neither should any other real estate professional. It's like the ante. You must qualify, not even qualify the buyer. You must ensure that the buyer is qualifying themselves and running the numbers, period. But I'm done with that. Okay, he's going to run the numbers with the lender and then get back to me. And he's not a rush type, but I'm confident he will let me submit by next week. Well, I can't wait for her to submit. If there's anything I couldn't love more on a Saturday night is someone being submissive. Boom, boom. What's up, Super Allen 91? I'm glad you made it to the live show too. I'm having a blast here. And honestly, I had to do this tonight because I will lose access to the real-time numbers tomorrow. The month resets the real-time numbers, period, at least with the data provider that I get these numbers from. If you want to know what the most recent numbers are elsewhere from any other real estate, not agency, but any other MLS, any other organization, what you'll find is July numbers out at the end of, actually, that's not true. July came out at the end of August, and August numbers will come out at the end of September. So you're a day late and a dollar short, and everything that you're reading is completely obsolete. So it's useless, which is why I'm committed to sharing this information in real time towards the end of the month. Now, if you've watched some of my earlier live streams where I talk about real-time numbers, when it's the beginning of the month, the numbers are always skewed. So you get a glimpse into obviously what's happening in real time, but you're not getting an accurate, you'll get very big distortions as to what the pricing is on everything because there's just not enough sales at that point. So anything that's done at the beginning of the month is not going to be representative of what's actually happening. You need more time for the data to be accurate. Anyhow, where was I at with this? Okay, so okay, so here we go. She's confident she will submit by next week. Of course, I respond, fantastic. We'd love to do a deal with you. She goes on to say, now it's interesting because nobody calls anymore. It is almost, well, It's incredibly rare that an agent gets on the phone and calls me and gets into rapport and creates a relationship and creates some goodwill and creates an opportunity for her to negotiate at a much higher level for her client. Most people just want to text these days, and even worse, sometimes they just email a contract without even having texted or called, at which point I know I'm dealing with a moron. But nonetheless, she goes, I respond to that. Fantastic. We'd love to do a deal with you. She goes on to say, been showing him homes on and off for over a year. So a buyer who wants to move to Florida, wants to live their dream home, in their dream home, live their dream lifestyle. A few years ago, they would have been waiving contingencies. There would have been a line of other buyers out the door, competitively outbidding them, waiving their contingencies, giving away their firstborn if they needed to. They would do whatever they had to do to get their home not that long ago. And that's just simply not the case here in most markets. And again, I want to talk in very specific terms, because if you niche down into certain hyperlocal markets and you find the home price the right way where there is no inventory, you're going to have those dynamics. It will be highly competitive. There will be multiple offers which bid the price higher, and that's just what it is. But by and large, that's not the case, and the numbers are going to show that. Anyhow, she goes on to say she's been showing homes for a year, about freaking time. For this one, especially, I was so insistent on making sure I got compensated, since it's been so that many O's on the so many showings and time spent. To which I responded, great work. I know how challenging it can be. Market dynamics at this point have flipped massively, so unfortunately for us, they can take as much time as they want. We've had 20 plus showings on this home and no offers yet. And that's the truth. But she goes on to say, buyers, especially the older ones, are financially sound, cautious individuals. They're waiting it out till they feel the sellers are doing their final price drops. And of course, for interest rates to go down too. We're going to talk about interest rates. She then goes to ask if the furniture is included in the purchase, to which, of course, I respond, furniture is negotiable. Everything can be included. Write it up in your contract. And that was that. But I share all that because buyers are not stupid. If you're shopping for a home and you're paying attention to what's happening, which I suspect everyone is doing their due diligence the right way, if there are 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 homes that all check the box for what you can afford and want to live in, well, I got great news for you. You got all the time in the world. It is an extreme buyer's market. You've got all the leverage. So don't do anything unless it's right for you. And the question I get from everyone is, when should I buy a home? When is the right time to buy a home? And my answer to that has never once changed. It's always the same. It's whenever it's right for you, period. So market will go up, market will go down, the market will always trade, and it's always a good market for somebody. My job is easy. I just pivot to whomever it's best for. But market dynamics have shifted, obviously, and now we're going to get right into what the data is, because the data doesn't lie. And in order for me to do that, I need to figure out what the heck I'm doing here. Oh, here we go. And share the screen. Stop sharing this one and start sharing. No, that is not it. Nope, that is not it. Where in God's green? Oh, here we go. That took longer than I anticipated. So we're going to start with a doozy, right? And if you've been watching for a while, you know I've talked about what's happening in the condo market. And this is all over the state, right? So condo buildings are subject to massive assessments up and down the coast. And yes, there are certain restrictions on what these laws and structural requirements are, but just put it in basic terms. Anything that is close to the water is going to very likely have to update and improve the structural integrity of the building. And Florida, which has been forever been a retirement destination for everybody, that's why that's why they called it Heaven's Waiting Room for a long time. You used to be able to go out there and buy a nice condo on the beach for a reasonable price. And there's lots of people that are in these buildings that did so. However, if you get hit with a $250,000 assessment that you can't pay, you are absolutely financially fucked. And although most of the markets that I service are in front of these assessments and the people who live in them, I'm talking about Boca Raton in particular, um, they've taken care of these requirements years ago, prior to the law even being changed. So all these structural requirements have already been done. The home or the condo owners have already been assessed, and it's simply not an issue in Boca Raton. But Boca Raton is also one of the most affluent places in the United States. So the people who live there have the means, they've got the liquidity, they have the net worth, they've got the wealth, they can go out there and stroke the check. Many other places don't have that luxury. And there's a lot of people who are in real trouble. And they're just Google it. There's horror stories up and down the coast. But Cape Coral's taking it on the chin. Right now, looking at the data that we are, Miami Beach is getting butchered. Miami Beach condos, as of right now, real-time numbers, um, and let me move the screen around a little bit. What you're going to see here in the current versus previous month, we're doing a look back on August, which is the month that we're in. So when you read the latest news that's put out by whatever association, just know you're reading about August numbers in September, which again, these numbers will change radically between now and then. But what do we see? In July, the average sold price for a condo in Miami Beach was 1.227 million. In August, it's 785,000. A loss, a whopping loss of 36%. That is a doozy. And it's also going to get much worse, I suspect, period. And Miami Beach is very different than Boca Raton, is very different than Delray Beach, very different than Boynton Beach, very different than any other place in the state, but each market is going to trade differently. And I suspect the condo dynamics are not going to be very good, no bueno, for many of these residents that live there. It'll be great if you're looking for a half price property. It will be, well, at this point, we're almost down 50% from last month. And I know it's a stretch, it's only 36, but tell that to the people who live there. Only 36. If you thought your condo was worth 1.227, let's call it 1.23 million, and the next month you find out it's worth 785, chances are you're not happy. And that's just the reality of what it is. Now, I'm going to go a little bit more macro here and go from city to municipal. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's look at Dade County condos. This is a more macro picture. And what you're going to see, again, this is a bigger picture. It's including a bigger surface area. It's more geography. It's a bigger net. The numbers change. But what you can't help but notice is that the average sold price for a condo in Dade County is down 12.4% from 828 to 725. Average sold price. No bueno. Alex, I promise you I will cover Parkland. No problem. And Super Allen Road. What are you right? Good stuff. We're waiting for a good time to move down. Delray area, $500,000 budget. What are the odds of prices dropping in the next 6 to 8 months? Well, Delray is a very big market, right? So as an example, if you watch the beginning of this, I don't know when you jumped on, I've got a listing right now priced at 575. It's been on the market 44 days. We've had 22 showings. We've had 0 contracts. I just gave you the back and forth between me and the agent who allegedly has a buyer. who is going to write up a contract, but we don't got it ain't over till the fat lady sings, right? So this is much ado about nothing. Um, until somebody writes a contract, we got nothing, period. So nothing doing right now on this particular listing other than 22 showings. That is not what the market was like last month, the month before that, certainly not the year before that. There are many homes in Delray Beach that are sitting on the market unsold in that sweet spot that you're looking for. So I suspect 6 to 8 months from now, you will have the opportunity to get a great deal on whatever you want. But I could be wrong. There are lots of agents out there that have been uh, talking about marry the house, date the rate, blah, 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 bullshit this, bullshit that. But they have a strong belief that with the Fed signaling that they are going to cut Fed funds rates, and I heard some conjecture that it could be as much as half a basis point. Uh, if that happens, well, then you can bet your sweet Bippy that mortgage interest rates are going to come down. Unfortunately, what nobody seems to be talking about besides me is the reality that most people who, it doesn't matter if mortgage interest, I think the last thing I saw is that they're under 6, but it doesn't matter. If mortgage interest rates are at 2% and 90% of the consumers that live in the United States are buried in debt, they can't qualify for the loan unless Kamala gives them the down payment or does something astronomical that's never been done before, which could create a massive run in the market. It could create a massive bull market. However, it will also guarantee that at some point in the near future, we are going to have the worst crash than we've ever seen. And it will make the great financial crisis look like nothing. It will look like a blip on the map, but I'm hoping none of that happens because it is a horrible policy. All right. So if you're waiting for Kamala Holmes, I think you're going to have a hard time. Exactly. People are broke, right? I go to the store. There are many people out there, again, that are on their income. They may be high income earners, but if you're buried in debt, if you're keeping up with the Joneses, if your debt to income ratio is not in alignment, you're not going to qualify for a loan, period. And when the market does crash, there will be lots of folks, especially institutional buyers, who are going to make hay while the sun's shining. When everybody's panicking and losing their mind, when there's blood in the streets, there are going to be lots of opportunistic investors who are going to gobble up everything they possibly can and make a fucking fortune. That's what's going to happen, period. And that's not what I want. Let me be very clear, but that is absolutely what's going to happen. All right. So where did I go? I'm all over the place here. All right. So we talked about condos in Dade County, and I don't do a lot of business in Dade County, to be totally transparent. I'm primarily in Palm Beach, primarily Boca Raton, Boynton Beach, Delray Beach, Wellington. I do go to West Broward. So to all you Parkland folks out there, I grew up in Parkland. I know Parkland like the back of my hand. Parkland, Coral Springs is also in my wheelhouse, but it's just not geographically desirable for me to go to many of these markets outside of my wheelhouse. Now, I will do it on exception for the right buyer at the right price, but you're probably, if you are shopping in any of these other markets, I will connect you with an all-star that I know, like, and trust, who I know for certain sees the market the same way I do, who I know has demonstrated a track record of being able to advocate and negotiate for you the right way. I'm not just going to pass you off to some a-hole. I'm going to pass you off to a professional that will get the job done and do it the right way. But so anyway, I went off on a tangent there. Basically, I'm in Palm Beach County, with exceptions depending on the circumstance. Let's look at Broward before we get into Palm Beach. Broward County. And when I first moved to Florida from New Jersey, when I was a little boy, we moved to Broward County. Broward County used to be, in my opinion, there are other people who will think otherwise, used to be an incredible place to live, right? When I moved here, we moved to Fort Lauderdale. My parents bought a property on At the time, I thought it was the most massive piece of land I'd ever seen, but it was on just under an acre on a canal, which went to the intercoastal, which then had access to the ocean. There was a fixed bridge. We did have a boat. My dad was balling out of control back then. He created banking software, international banking software, um, right as computers were being developed, and he had tremendous success. But when we first moved here, he was dead ass broke. And the reality is, he was able to score a deal on this property, single family home, as I mentioned, on the water. And I want to say it was around ballpark figure because I don't exactly remember the price, but it was around $250,000. That same home today is well north of $1 million, right? And that home was built in the 50s. So you could buy homes there, and there were lots of great neighborhoods, lots of great schools, lots of kids in the neighborhood were outside playing. Like, I love living in that area at the time. It's not like that anymore. It's highly overcrowded, and it is so bad in Fort Lauderdale, by the beach, in the tourist areas. I won't bring my kids there. It is disgusting. You're going to get hit with. The last time I was there, hand to God, true story. I was there meeting a friend, visiting from out of town. We went to some ritzy restaurant right on the beach. I don't remember the name, but I stopped in at a 7-Eleven as I was going home after lunch, right around the corner from this extremely nice high-end restaurant in an extremely nice high-end building right on the beach. Around the corner, I hit the 7-Eleven to get something to drink, and there was a hooker fighting with a pimp in the parking lot, and both of them were cracked out of their minds. I thought I was going to have to get involved and rescue this woman, but thankfully it didn't escalate for me to have to do anything or call the police, and I didn't have to intervene. But I don't really get scared, to be honest with you. There's no situation where I feel unsafe, but I can tell you for certain, I definitely did not want my kids there, and it was not safe. But that's what it is now. That is my experience. Now, of course, there are luxury areas that are great places to live, assuming you've got the bankroll to be able to live that lifestyle, that are super exclusive in Fort Lauderdale. So I don't mean to shit all over Fort Lauderdale, but unless you're balling out of control, I wouldn't live in Broward County or Fort Lauderdale if you paid me. But that is just my personal opinion, and others are welcome to their own. So we're looking at Broward County. And now we're going to go into Coral Springs. I'm going to follow that up with Parkland. All right, let's see what the numbers reveal. Woo-wee! It is not pretty I'm looking at condos. All right, well, I typically don't do a lot of condo business unless it's in Boca Raton. And Delray Beach doesn't really have beachfront condos at all. So it's not the product I choose to typically get involved with, but I'm very interested in knowing what the single family homes are in Coral Springs. I also lived in Coral Springs. I've lived everywhere. All right, so the real estate market is collapsing. Well, it sure is in the condo market in Miami Beach. But in Coral Springs, the average sold price so far, which when I say so far, I mean, this is it for August, is up 3.2%, right? So relative to July, 739 versus 716,000, up 3.2%. What we should look at is the month's supply of inventory, because that is going to give us some information. Because if there is a tremendous amount of homes sitting on the market unsold, well, then as a buyer, you've probably got a lot of leverage. But what we can see, although it is a big jump in terms of a percentage gain basis, the month supply of inventory jumped from 3.2 to 3.7 months, up 15.4%. That's still a seller's market. It's not the insanity of what it used to be during the frenzy, but it's still primarily a seller's market in Coral Springs, period. And again, Coral Springs is a macro. You would have to drill deep into the area that you're shopping in. All of these numbers will change. So if you are thinking about buying or selling in Coral Springs, make sure you understand the hyper-local market in which you're shopping or thinking about selling in, because this is a macro number. If we look at the jump from June to July, you'll notice it was a double whammy, 27.6% gain. So 2.5. So is the trend our friend or not? Well, in June, it was 2.5 months, which is a very strong seller's market. July jumped, so June to July, almost a 28% gain, 3.2 months to 3.7. Well, the trend indicates it's not your friend if you're thinking about selling, and it's starting to become your friend if you're thinking about buying. But again, macro number, this will change on a case-by-case basis, but that's all I have to say about Coral Springs for now. Let's look at Parkland, Florida. Shout out to the Stoneman Douglas Eagles, where I went to high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Well, we'll start with month supply because I'm already here. And what you're going to notice is a decrease of month supply of inventory. So the supply side is drying up. Went from 4.3 months to 3.8. Well, kind of is a wash if we look at June, because in June it was, and it's not a total wash, obviously, I know how to add, but in June, it was a 20% gain, uptick in inventory, 3.5 months to 4.2, which then jumped in July. Although, look, this is not accurate, right? So July up here, it says 4.2, and then down here, it says 4.3, which tells me that the data provider is inaccurate. So I don't know which one of these numbers is correct, but let's just assume it's the higher number, 4.3. Okay, well, it decreased to 3.8, a drop of 11.6%, which means, again, if you're thinking about selling, you probably have more leverage. If you're thinking about buying, you probably got more competition. But that's Parkland in a nutshell. In terms of month supply of inventory, let's look and see what you're more interested in, which is price. All right, the average sold price in August jumped 3.1%. All right, 1.228 to 1.266. However, June told a different story. Dropped 6.1%, 1.309 to 1.229, right? So it's a mixed bag. And what I've been telling everyone, and if you've been watching for a while, you've heard me say this, we're in volatility season. Volatility season is here. So you can expect to see lots of volatility in almost every market that you're shopping in or thinking about selling in. And obviously, we're in an election cycle. So I think there's going to be volatility, obviously, in the real estate market, in the housing market, in the condo market, but also everywhere else. Spring Hill, I don't have access to, unfortunately, Mike. It's outside of my wheelhouse. But if you shoot me an email, I will be able to find out whatever you want to know. Let's see. Elections have consequences. Mean tweets in a home or no mean tweets, and you are homeless. Yes, truth is treason. Bad policies have a consequence. And if there is a change in policy that then allows or the government subsidizes in some way or stimulates the market in some way, which the latest proposal from Harris is to propose up to $25,000 in down payment support for first-time home buyers, that will definitely distort the market and create economic havoc down the road. And while everybody who thinks they're getting a Kamala home, and I got that when I was talking to one of my buddies who's a YouTuber out in Destin, Florida, and he mentioned Obama phones, I couldn't help myself, and I created Kamala homes. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free down payment. There's no such thing as a free anything. And if you take it, chances are when the dust settles and the economic reality becomes less distorted, you're going to lose the home. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. But in addition to that, she also wants to tax unrealized gains. And that will, in my opinion, create a mass exodus of wealthy people from our country. And we've got a track record of that. In, where was it? Denmark? I'm like 99.9% or sure that it was Denmark. But in Denmark, they did that. And what happened? All the wealthy, they thought that they were going to create a massive tax revenue. They ended up coming in with significantly less tax revenue. And all the wealthy people who employ most of the uh, job seekers in that country left the country. So the unintended consequences are going to be disastrous for our country if that happens. At least that's what I think. But what do I know? I'm just a former stockbroker of 20 years and a guy who makes YouTube videos and sells real estate at the highest level. So if you need help with anything, feel free to reach out. All right. So where was I? I lost my train of thought going down that wormhole. I apologize. All right. So we talked about Parkland. We talked about pricing. We talked about month supply of inventory. Let's see. Is there anything else in Broward County you want to know about? Because if not, I'm moving on to Palm Beach, which is the market that I primarily service. Going once, going twice, going 3 times, we are gone. And if you are watching this later, if you're not on the live stream, if there is an area in Broward, Dade, or Palm Beach County that you want to know about, that you're interested in, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to answer your questions and get you up to speed with whatever it is that you might want to know. Separately, if you want something outside of my wheelhouse, I'll connect you with an all-star professional who can help you at the highest level. All right, so now we're in Palm Beach County. And let's just look at what the condo market is for shits and giggles, because I'm curious. And again, this is a macro number, right? So Palm Beach County is a very big area. It consists of many hyperlocal markets that are all very different. So the condo market in Palm Beach County, we're talking high level numbers, macro numbers. But what you can't help but notice is that the trend is not your friend if you're thinking about selling a condo in Palm Beach County. In June, 527. In July, 483. An average sold price loss of 8.3%. Nobody likes to take a loss in anything, especially, and let's just role play this for a second here. All right. This unrealized gains, the taxing of unrealized gains becomes a reality. And your whatever, stock, house, piece of real estate, doesn't matter. But whatever the thing you bought at 100 goes to 1,000, and you get taxed at that $1,000 unrealized gain. Well, that's nice. You got hit. You didn't realize any gain, but you got the tax consequence of that gain. And then whatever the cycle is, with I don't know how they're going to do it, but let's just say it's on a calendar year. The next day of the next year, the thing that you bought went to zero, which happens in the stock market, unfortunately, way more often than you'd ever want to know about. But I've seen it happen with Enron. I've seen it happen with Lehman Brothers. I've seen it happen with Bear Stearns. And I've seen it with all types of different micro cap companies often. It is when the economy starts to fail, and God forbid the system breaks, there will be companies that are valued at zero. Well, you bought it at 100 and you got taxed at 1,000 and paid those taxes, right? And then the thing that you invested in goes to zero. Oh, that sucks. Congratulations, you just got taxed and you got no economic benefit whatsoever. Maybe you'll have a tax write-off, but I suspect you'd much rather have the money in the bank, but you're fucked. All right, so again, I'm not an economist and this is not meant to be political, but just think, people. Okay, so Palm Beach County condos on the down tick. The trend is not your friend, down 8.3%. June or July versus June, and August versus July down 5.2%. 434 versus 458. Now, again, macro number, if you're shopping for a condo in Boca Raton on the ocean or close to the ocean or by the intercoastal or waterfront or whatever the case may be, you're not going to find anything at 458. You're going to be shopping for something north of $1 million. That's what the market is in Boca Raton. Boca Raton obviously is in Palm Beach County, but I don't want to get too stuck into condos because that's not really my thing. Let's look at the month's supply of inventory. Bam. All right. So June, we got a July versus June. Month supply of inventory dropped 1.2%, but it's at 8.4 months. That is a strong buyer's market for condos. Well, it got a lot stronger in August because it jumped 17.5%. Went from 8.6 months of condos sitting on the market unsold to almost a year, 10.1 months. And I can promise you that number is going to go higher next month, period. End of story. And yes, I know their mortgage interest rates have come down. I've also noticed that the applications for new mortgages is nowhere near what they wanted it to be. So there's not like this. There is a rush to refinance. There is not a rush to go out there and get a new mortgage yet. It's also yet to be determined. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't suspect most folks are going to benefit from a mortgage interest rate reduction because they're not going to qualify for the loan to begin with because they're buried in debt. Again, doesn't apply to everybody. If you're wealthy, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And if you're not, well, chances are you're fucked. All right, so that was condos. Let's go to single family homes because that is more of what I do. And we're looking at Palm Beach County macro again. So this is encompassing all of Palm Beach County. We're going to get more granular. So if you have any place that you want to know about in Palm Beach County, I will be happy to cover it. But we're definitely going to do Boca Raton, Boynton Beach. I'll go hyper local into Boynton Beach, into my neighborhood, into the Canyons market, which is in West Boynton. It also encompasses some other neighborhoods, but it's primarily the Canyons neighborhoods, which is a GL Homes community. Great place to live. But we're going to go hyper local there. From there, we'll also go into Delray Beach. We'll go into Wellington, and then we'll call it a night. All right, so let's see here. Palm Beach County, single family homes. What do we see as far as the trend? Well, it looks like the trend is not your friend if you're thinking about selling, and it certainly is more your friend if you're thinking about buying. But the average sold price, July versus June, is down 3.5%. It's still pricey. It's still north of $1 million. And then August, which is where we're at right now, which won't be reported until the end of September by most different associations, which will be completely useless to you at the time. We're going to give it to you right now in real time. But August versus July, the average sold price dropped 2.3%. So the trend is indicating something, and we've got to continue to watch the trends. It's not your friend if you're thinking about selling. But what you'll see is it dropped from 1.133 to 1.107. Wealthy, affluent area. It's pricey. But if you own a home and then you find out that you took a 5% loss in the last few months, you're probably not happy. And if you bought a home recently in the last few years, chances are you're negative. Chances are you're sitting with negative equity, depending on how much money you put down. So it's no bueno for most folks who are living on the fringe of their finances. And there's a lot of folks in Palm Beach County who are fake rich, high income earners who like to pretend that they're a certain kind of way, want to live a life that they really can't afford, and they're maxed out in credit card debt. They're fucked eventually. And I don't want anybody to be fucked ever. So I hope people will have a hard talk with themselves, have a hard talk with their wives or partners or whomever it is, and see, is this sustainable? Can we survive? And if the answer is no, then sell immediately because the trend is indicating something which you got to pay attention to. And if, God forbid, the system breaks, if God forbid, we have another revision of job numbers like we just had, the worst in a long time, and it becomes revealed that the economy is not really in the shape that they would have you believe. But by they, I'm talking about the system. Um, Most people that I talk to are stretched financially in terms of cost of living. They can't afford their insurance premiums. They can't afford to buy groceries in some cases. They're really in financial pain. Well, if everybody feels that pain at the same time and something catastrophic happens and everybody hits the market at the same time, you're not ever going to get out of that house with any equity. And I know there are lots of people who are sitting on a metric shit ton of equity, but not if you bought in the last year or two. You're negative equity, you're fucked. So have the hard talk, be honest with yourself, run your own numbers, do your own due diligence, and see if it makes sense for you. And if it doesn't, then please do what you must to be able to survive. All right. And again, each market is different, right? So Palm Beach County is an affluent market. It will trade differently than other markets, but a rising tide will lift all boats and a waning tide will reveal who's not wearing shorts. So um, I think when and people ask me this all the time, like, what do you, Chris, what do you think is going to happen with our house? What do you think is going to happen in our hyper local market? Although they don't say it that way, they'll say wherever it is they live. And I tell them the truth. I think there are a lot of people who are protected. I think that this is a more affluent market. I think that this market is more immune to economic changes than other markets. But it's not completely protected. There's going to be outliers, and there's going to be a lot of people who are in real trouble. So that's what it is. That's what I think is likely to happen. But the future looks bright, and only buy or sell a home if and when it's right for you. Do not listen to anybody else's opinion about anything as it relates to buying or selling. Run your numbers, do what's right for you, and never, ever, if you ever speak to a real estate professional and they start to employ sales pressure, run like hell because it's just, I have zero tolerance for it. It makes me sick. All right, so we looked at what the numbers are. Ooh, bar the door Sally. Massive uptick in supply. And when there's more supply and less demand, you know what's going to happen. Month supply of inventory jumped 12.7% in July versus June. It jumped 18.5% in August versus July. That's a lot of uptick. And again, 4.3 months is on the fringe of still being, I don't even really want to call it a seller's market because I feel like there are some who will argue that anything under 6 months is a seller's market. I don't particularly agree with that, but 4.3 months means you've got options, you've got leverage if you're shopping, but it's still a technically seller's market. 5.1 months and this trend is definitely not your friend if you're thinking about selling. I would be, I, I don't know why I even pretend to censor myself. I'll be dipped in shit if in September we don't see a massive uptick in month supply of inventory, which means if you're buying, you've got more options. And again, this is macro, this is Palm Beach County, this encompasses many different micro markets. It's going to look a lot different in other areas, which we're about to dive into. But overall, macro, it's 5.1 months and an uptick of 18.5% August versus July and 12, almost 13% July versus June. No bueno if you're thinking about selling. And the chart obviously indicates what those changes have been. And I need to be abundantly clear because I don't want to fall or pretend to think or pretend to even have you think that the sky is falling. The sky is not falling. The trend is no bueno, but the numbers that we're seeing now are far more indicative of what the market looked like pre-pandemic. So if you happen to be a real estate agent and you've only experienced the massive frenzy and the massive bull market and all the leverage, well, then you have a very distorted picture of what the real estate industry is, that was an anomaly, that was an outlier, and that's not likely to happen again anytime soon, unless the government does some stupid bullshit, which will destroy the country in the future. Um, but yet to be determined. All right, so that's Palm Beach County single family homes. From here, we're going macro. Let's go to Boca Raton first because alphabetically it comes in front of Boynton. And let's see what the month supply of inventory tells us. Well, massive uptick in July versus June, up 23%, 3.4 months to 4.2. August versus July, up almost 7%, 4.4 months to 4.7. So the trend is not your friend if you're thinking about selling, and the chart indicates as much. But to be clear, again, these numbers, they don't exactly blow me down. This is more like pre-pandemic numbers. But you may be interested in the supply side. I suspect you're more interested in the pricing. So let's look at that. Ooh, very interesting. And again, to be clear, this is Boca Raton. This is a very affluent area. This is a very pricey place to live. Average sold price in July versus June dropped almost 9%, 1.8 million down to 1.641. And in August versus July, it's up 4.3%, 1.713 jumped to 1.786. So make no mistake, if you're thinking about buying a home in Boca Raton, and to be clear, the macro number, these numbers can jump astronomically depending on where you're shopping in Boca Raton. This is just the average, but if you are thinking about buying or selling anywhere in Boca Raton, just know East Boca is very different than Central Boca, is very different than West Boca, right? There's more affordability in West Boca, but Boca, by and large, is a pricey place to live. And if you want to know about a specific area in Boca Raton, then shoot me an email and we can talk. I will get you dialed in as quickly as possible. That's Boca Raton. You don't really have to cry, break out the world's tiniest violin and start crying or playing a song for everybody. These are wealthy people, but how wealthy are they? Because again, I know lots of fake rich people who like to pretend they're rich. And if you bought a home at, let's just see here, 1.8 million, and it's now worth, this is not a very good range, but it does illustrate the point. If you paid 1.8 and it's now worth 1.786, chances are you're not happy. But again, an 8.8 loss and a 4.38 gain kind of slashes that in half. But if you bought in the last year or two, chances are you're negative equity and you're in trouble if you can't afford the home. And many folks are suffering from inflation. And obviously, this is going to be on a case-by-case basis, but please understand, nobody's immune to economic change, especially if there's something disastrous that happens. But that's Boca Raton. Let's go into Boynton Beach. And holy shit, I've been on for over an hour here. My kids will not be happy. All right, so now we're looking at Boynton Beach, single family homes. What you can't help but notice is a 6.7 gain, July versus June, 656 versus 615. August gave it all back, down 8%, 601 versus 653. And I don't truly understand why. Yes, I do. So the reason these numbers are not the same is because there's an extra day in August. All right, so I think that's right. If I'm wrong, then feel free to let me know in the comment section. All right, so that's Boynton Beach. From here, I want to go into the canyons that are located in West Boynton. I'm doing that because this is the market in which I live, and I do a lot of business in. And many people who find me on YouTube want to live in this particular area. And so the West Boynton area is extremely nice. If you're looking at a map and you look at Boynton Beach, what you'll inevitably come to find out, if you don't already know, you're always going to pay a premium for anything that is waterfront or close to the water. So if you're near the beach or if you're near the intercoastal, you're going to pay a premium to live that type of lifestyle in Boynton Beach. As you get into central Boynton Beach, it starts to look and feel less than in many areas relative to some of the newer communities. I'm not knocking it, but that's just the perception that most people share with me. It's older, it's not as nice. And again, I'm talking with a broad brush here. I'm not. There are outliers. There are outlier neighborhoods, but overall, that's the reality. As you get into West Boynton Beach, everything is new or newer. Everything is built out specifically for families and no, I would say primarily their family neighborhoods. They are zoned for the best schools. They've got most of the communities are in HOAs, which I know many people don't like. I prefer them, especially knowing the difference in my market. But they typically are gated. They are typically secure. They typically have very nice amenities, and they normally come at a very good value, right? So we live in the canyon, so what I'm about to cover is canyon trails, canyon lakes, canyon springs, canyon isles. There are some other communities, but I would be here all night if I talk about all of them. But that's what I'm going to highlight now. And let's see what this reveals and if the trend is our friend in the canyons. Well, doesn't look to be as far as pricing is concerned, because the average sold price dropped almost 2% in July versus June and almost 5% August versus September. Still pricey, still an expensive place to live, but there are many folks. In fact, I did a video showcasing a property with one of my neighbors who, at the time, a few years ago, paid the highest price for a single family home in Canyon Trails. And recently, he listed that home for sale, did nothing to the home. In fact, he bought the home with furniture. It's the exact same home, exact same furniture, presented the exact same way, except they jacked up the price. And it sat on the market unsold for a period of time. They pulled it off the market. They did not get their number. Now, I don't know anything about the seller's economic position or what they want to do. And if I did, I wouldn't share it with you anyway. But I do know they didn't get the number that they wanted. And now the home is sitting on the market, or actually sitting off the market unsold. And I don't believe it's lived in either. So whomever owns that property is hemorrhaging cash, and they can't get out, or they can't get out without taking a massive loss. I suspect that person is feeling some economic pain. Because who wants to sit holding a property that they paid the highest number for, hemorrhaging cash each month and let's pretend they bought it for cash. Okay, great. So they don't have a mortgage, but they're still hemorrhaging cash for property insurance, for HOA fees, for maintaining the home. No bueno. But the average sold price overall in 33473, which is primarily the canyons, is down 5%, August versus July, and 2%. So let's just call it 7% over the last few months. Oh, bueno, if you're thinking about selling. Very bueno, muy bonita, chicana. I don't speak Spanish. I'm a gringo. But let's look at the month's supply of inventory. All right, month's supply of inventory. Woo! This is the worst one yet, unless I went back and looked at Miami Beach condo inventory, in which case I know that number is much higher, but an 80% uptick in supply of homes. Huh, interesting. I wonder what's going to happen if I had a crystal ball and had a gun to my head and had to predict what's going to happen in terms of pricing in the near term in the canyons. I would tell you, I suspect the numbers are going down. But uptick on the month supply of inventory of 80.2%, 3.7 months in July, 6.7 months in August. Now, if you wanted to question these numbers and say to me, Chris, it's summertime and people are listing their homes, so of course there's going to be an uptick in supply because people want to sell when their kids are on their summer break, when they're not in school. And I would tell you, yeah, I agree, that's true. However, July is summer too. So is August. So I don't think that has any bearing on the month supply of inventory, but this is a trend we must keep our eyes on. And obviously, as you can see, July versus June, it was flat, stayed the same. Let's see what the numbers yield towards the end of next month. But the numbers don't lie, period, end of story. So that's the Canyons market update. And then from there, let's go into Wellington. Let me look at these comments here because I have not been paying attention. How's St. John's holding up? Matt K. If you want to know more about St. John's, I don't cover that particular market. I don't have access to that information, but I can get you dialed in with what you want to know, wherever it is that you want to know about in St. John's. But shoot me an email and I'll get you connected with a all-star professional who is hyper local, understands the market, and also understands how to best advocate for you the right way, irrespective of market conditions. All right, so we are now going to Wellington. You know what? Let's look at Lake Worth. Lake Worth, which I think gets a bad rap. And if you were looking at a map of Lake Worth, I would tell you that there are areas within Lake Worth, just Google it, which are extremely sketchy, and you couldn't pay me $1 million to live there. There are also places in West Lake Worth that are almost or very similar to living in the canyons. They are great communities. They are great family communities. They tend to be a little bit older products. Most of them have been updated, but zoned for great schools, zoned for or proximity to everything you could possibly want. It's very little difference living in West Lake Worth to West Boynton. They're very, very similar. But overall, in terms of looking at Lake Worth, which is the whole enchilada, all the micro markets that exist within it, and what you see in terms of month supply of inventory is a massive uptick of homes for sale. July versus June up 12.4%, 3.2 months to 3.6. And then August versus July up 40, almost 45%, 3.4 months to damn near 5. That's a massive uptick over the last 2 or 4 months. That is something that you must be aware of if you're thinking about buying or selling in Lake Worth. But also, to be clear, each market's going to trade differently. So if you want to know about Lake Worth or a specific area that you're thinking about buying or selling, reach out and I'll get you dialed in the right way, because Lake Worth, I think, is a hidden gem for many people looking for affordability. And obviously the numbers dictate that there is a massive uptick. So chances are, if you're buying, you're going to have a lot of leverage because there's lots of competition. But what does the price say? Well, drop of 2.3%, July versus June, 621 to 607, and an uptick of 2% August versus 7. So essentially a wash, 590 to 601. But let's see, again, volatility, again, a mixed bag. And I suspect we're going to see more volatility as we get closer to the election across the board everywhere. I hope that doesn't happen, but I would be dipped in shit if it doesn't. We are in volatility season. So you can expect massive swings in the stock market. You can expect lots of variability and price swings in supply and pricing in real estate. But people who are on the fringe, people who are in financial trouble, are going to be feeling a lot more pain, which is sufficient to force sales at some point as things continue to worsen. But that is Lake Worth. And from there, you got a bonus one. I wasn't planning on doing Lake Worth. Let's look at Wellington. And then I'll wrap it because it's freaking 9:18 and I've been on for almost an hour and a half. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. So I hope you guys have too. All right. There's nothing else I would rather do on a Saturday night than share the truth, transparency, what's actually happening in the market so that you are empowered to make the best decisions for yourself, for your family, and for your financial bottom line. All right. So we are in Wellington, and Wellington is extremely wealthy in certain areas. It is the equestrian capital of the world during the winter months. So there are extremely exclusive areas within Wellington which distort the market radically relative to other places in Wellington, right? So again, this is a broad-based number. It's the macro number, but you'll see the average active price right now, August versus July, is almost 2.5 million versus, I'm rounding up, 2.5 versus 2.4, an uptick of 5%. To be clear, the active average price is what a seller wants, not what a buyer paid, but we're talking about high price points. There are lower price points in Wellington that are extremely nice communities, but this is a distorted number. So if you're shopping and you want to be in Wellington or thinking about selling in Wellington, please reach out and I'll get you dialed in the right way. But Wellington is one of the best zoned school areas that you could possibly want to live in outside of arguably West Boynton and Boca Raton for public schools. There are great private schools everywhere. They are extremely expensive. In fact, when my kids were younger, I went to an open house for American Heritage, which is a private school in Delray Beach. And I went through their dog and pony show, but I couldn't help but notice, and this is when I first got into real estate, so I was not making money, or certainly not enough money to send my kids there at the time. But I remember walking in and I noticed that the janitor drove a Porsche. Immediately, I knew that there's no chance my kids are going to this school. But they did everything. They taught the kids Mandarin Chinese, which I didn't really understand, given that in Florida, speaking Spanish is a much better choice. But nonetheless, they're teaching their kids Mandarin Chinese, and it was just unbelievable. Anyhow, when I ran the numbers, I realized that if my kids went to school there and we agreed to pay the tuition, we would have paid over $1 million by the time they graduated from high school in fees for this private education. And again, I'm not knocking it. If you got the money, do whatever you want. At the time, I didn't. Now is a different story. But I still wouldn't pay that. Honestly, I would not pay that today because my kids go to an incredible school that is equal, if not better. And they won the lottery to go to the school. So literally, they had to apply and win a lottery. But they go to school in Boca. And also, to be totally transparent, I did not want my kids to be exposed to what I thought I saw in that school, which I will describe as affluenza. I don't want my kids going to a school where I think they're going to end up being pretentious assholes. Not to say that anybody who goes to that school is a pretentious asshole, but my fear was that they might be. And what so I will not raise asshole kids, period. But where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So if the graduation rates from that school indicated that by going to the school and paying and stroking the check for $1 million worth of tuition, then they were guaranteed to get into an Ivy League school, well, maybe I consider it. But I came to learn that their graduation rates were similar, if not the same, to most of the good public school systems that are here in Palm Beach County. Most kids who graduate from that school, they don't go to Ivy League schools, they go to Florida schools, University of Florida, Florida State, wherever. I'm not spending $1 million in tuition for my kids to go to not have a guarantee of Ivy League. They'll earn it. And my kids are super smart, so I'm not worried about where they go to school. But to spend $1 million or more for tuition and not have a guarantee for Ivy League, to me, didn't make any sense then. It doesn't make any sense now. And I'm thrilled with it, where they go to school. But I'm off my soapbox. What were we talking about? Okay, so we talked about pricing, right? Average sold price is down 3.6% in August versus July. And it was down 6.7% July versus June in Wellington. The month's supply of inventory I saw somebody ask for Port St. Lucie. Yes, I can cover that area for you. So that will be next, even though I said I would end after this one. But I am committed to giving you what you want. And I hope you're committed to reaching out to me if you or anyone you know is ever thinking about buying or selling anywhere. And by anywhere, I legitimately mean everywhere. Because I am networked with all-star professionals throughout the country, which will ensure, irrespective of where you're at or what market conditions are, they will be able to advocate and negotiate for you the right way. But obviously, if you're in my market, then I'm happy to roll up my sleeves and do it myself. But month supply of inventory, woo-wee, massive uptick, up 134% in month supply of inventory in Wellington, July versus June. So 4.2 months jump to almost 10 months. That is a huge jump. This went from a seller's market to a massive buyer's market in a month. And then August versus July, it came back down a little bit, but not much, not enough to move the needle. Again, this is a macro number, so depending on where you're shopping, because each market within Wellington will trade differently, but the trend is definitely not your friend if you are thinking about selling, because although it decreased 13.5% and it dropped from 9.6 to 8.3 months, 8.3 months is a lot of inventory sitting on the market unsold. So no bueno if you're selling, muy bueno if you're buying, and then there was a shout out for Port St. Lucie. Hi, sweetie pie. Please hold. Hello. I am not done yet. You want to say hi? Yeah. My daughter. Hello. All right, now you're going to go. I will be done once I wrap this up real quick. Yeah, I got a live stream. So we got 53 people on, and I've been talking for an hour and 25 minutes. Hello. Now say goodbye. 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 All right, go. I'll be down in a sec. Okay. So that was my number one. What? Yes. All right. So I told them I would be an hour tops, and I'm at an hour and a half. All right. So we're looking for Port St. Lucie. By the way, I will share this. So one of the things I am very good at is prospecting via the phone. And so my daughters, who are now under 10, well, one's 10, one's 9, they can both prospect on the phone better than most agents by light years. And so they would watch me do it, and I'd role play with them. But to watch them as like 4 and 5-year-olds role play and say, I noticed your property had expired on the MLS. How on earth did the property not sell? To me, it was hilarious. But they will be incredible salespeople if they choose to go down that road. All right, so we're looking for Port St. Lucie, and I'm in the wrong spot. I want to go to setting. Whoa. No. I want to go to city. Want to go to Port St. Lucie. I appreciate your patience. There's 49 of you or 51 of you, or the number keeps jumping. I truly appreciate that you guys have stuck on with me. Palm Coast, I don't cover, unfortunately, Wilbur, but if you want to know more about them or about that area, then please shoot me an email and I'll get you dialed in. All right, Port St. Lucie. Let's see what the numbers reveal. And let's go to price first, because I suspect that's what you're most interested in. To be clear, again, and this is the disclaimer for all markets, when I'm talking about a city, it's a macro number. There's always going to be different markets that exist within that city. They all trade differently. There will be a different intensity of supply and demand depending on where you're shopping 100% of the time. And anybody who tells you otherwise either doesn't know what they're talking about or is lying. But let's look at what the pricing, right? So July versus June, average sold price flat, 419 versus 419, right? August versus July, it's up almost 3%, 414 jump to 425. If we look at the month supply of inventory, I suspect it's going to tell a different No, it's actually kind of a wash. So month supply of inventory down 2.3% July versus June, 4.3 months dropped to 4.2, and August versus July, an uptick of 2.4. So essentially remain the same, 4.4 months, right? 4.4 months is still not a strong seller's market, but it still favors sellers more than buyers. But with 4.4 months of supply, you've got lots of leverage as a buyer. And as I disclosed when I started this live stream, I've got a property in Del Rey. The home was built in 2022, memory serves me correctly. It is immaculate. It is as if it's brand new. It was almost never lived in. It's fully furnished. It's got impact windows. It's got a new roof because it's a brand new house, essentially. It's in a great community. It's been sitting on the market for 44 days. What I didn't share but should have, it's also the lowest price home on the market in that neighborhood. We priced it competitively. 22 showings, 0 offers. So as a buyer, you've got in most places a lot of leverage to negotiate a much better deal. Now, if things change, well, when things change moving forward, there's going to be a shift either way in market dynamics. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what type of rabbit the system may pull out of its hat or out of its ass to stimulate the economy, to do whatever they need to do to stay in power. They could do lots of things which artificially inflate all markets moving forward, but they can't do it forever. So if that happens, which I pray to God it doesn't, but if that happens, all that tells me is that we're delaying the inevitable, and the next crash is going to be the most catastrophic collapse we've ever seen in American history. I don't want that. But that's it. That's all for now. I appreciate all 52 of you. Estella, you are welcome. I'm happy to help anybody. If there's a market you want to know about I didn't cover, shoot me an email. And as always, if you or anyone you know is ever thinking about buying or selling or moving to Florida, please reach out. We will, if you're selling, find the one buyer on planet Earth willing to pay more than anybody else, irrespective of market conditions. And if you're buying, we will find your dream home. We will find your dream lifestyle. And we will, hand to God, negotiate the best deal humanly possible and advocate and support you the right way. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, and I'll see you on my next live stream. Oh, please subscribe. Thank you. Love you all. Peace.